Welcome to IQ Flicks. Today, I'm going to recap an American drama, comedy film called Joy, which came out in the year 2015. The film is about Joy Mangano, a bright, energetic young woman with a complicated personal life. She is divorced with 2 children and just watches soap operas all day. Joy designs a revolutionary new mop, and this leads to all sorts of adventures, good and bad. Despite facing several hardships, Joy rises against all odds and sets up a successful business empire. But before we begin, beware of spoilers, and I hope you enjoy the video. In the opening of the movie, we meet Joy, who constantly has to cater after her soap opera-loving mother, Carrie. Joy is in her airline uniform, looking in her mother's closet for the lanyard she needs for work. We meet Joy's 2 children as she wrangles them up. The doorbell rings, surprising everyone. It turns out to be Joy's father, Rudy, who is having problems with his girlfriend of 2 years, so he's moving back into the basement. Joy says he can't because her ex-husband lives down there. Rudy goes downstairs into the basement to move in, and Joy's ex-husband, Tony, is down there practicing a song in Spanish for an upcoming gig. Rudy and Tony begin to bicker. Joy tells them not to kill each other and uses a roll of toilet paper to divide the room in half. She goes upstairs and leaves for work. At the airline desk, a customer yells at her and throws her itinerary in Joy's face, demanding to speak to her manager. Joy's co-workers pull her aside and tell her she's been moved to the night shift, which Joy points out she can't do because of her family. Joy visits her dad at his shop and tells him about her job. Her older half-sister, Peggy, is there, and she tells Joy she should take over Peggy's position at the shop. Rudy makes a phone call about a woman he liked. He reveals to Joy he joined a service via a 900 number where he finds single women based on their 4-digit ID number. Then we see a flashback to what Joy's life has been like and why her family causes her such anxiety. Her parents got divorced 17 years earlier. They argue over visitation rights, and Rudy accidentally destroys the origami house that was shown to be so important to young Joy earlier. Years later, Joy's childhood friend Jackie invites Joy to a house party. When they arrive, a Mexican band is on stage, singing in Spanish. The lead singer is Tony, who grabs Joy and begins dancing with her. They go to the back room and have a conversation. He brags that he's going to be a famous singer, the next Tom Jones. The next time we see the two, they are performing in a musical theater show together. Then we see their wedding. While Rudy is putting Joy's veil on her head, he tells her she should have married a lawyer or a doctor. This pisses off Joy because this is not the perfect time. Some time has passed and we see Joy and Tony fighting, with their 2 kids in the room. He thinks she's mad at him because he hasn't gotten famous and is just playing gigs at the same club over and over. She tells him it's because he drinks too much, hence his current hangover. Back in the present day, Joy has a new idea for an invention. She runs upstairs to her daughter's room and begins drawing out her idea in crayons. When Joy next sees Tony, she tells him she needs him to move out. Her father is ecstatic that he will now have the basement to himself, but she tells him to move out, too. She says she has an idea for a new invention and she needs Trudy, Rudy's new and rich Italian girlfriend, to put up the money. Rudy arranges for Trudy to pitch the idea in his office. Joy explains that she wants to design a self-wringing mop that you never have to touch, using her crayon drawings as visual aids. Trudy is skeptical, saying Joy doesn't have a prototype but instead just some drawing. Rudy chimed in, saying Trudy will have to see a model of what she is envisioning. Joy goes to one of the welders in her dad's shop and asks him if he can weld something for her. Joy works and develops a mold of what she wants. Joy now pitches the prototype to Trudy, in the office again. This time, Jackie and Peggy are there. Joy loops 300 feet of cotton around Jackie's hands for several minutes until it's all combined into a mop head. She demonstrates how this means the mop is one continuous loop, which can easily be cleaned, instead of individual strings like most mop heads. She also adds you can remove it and clean it off in the washing machine. Trudy asks if Joy can promise a return in 6 months. Joy agrees, which makes Tony nervous. Trudy asks Joy a question, which is in the form of an analogy. There is a gun on the table. The only other person in the room is an adversary in commerce. Only one of you can prevail. Do you pick up the gun? Joy says it's a weird question but assures her she will pick up the gun. Trudy says she will have to tell her lawyers that Joy said that. She's also going to check that there aren't any existing patents similar. After Trudy's lawyer searches, he finds a patent filed in Texas for a similar design by someone in Hong Kong. They work with a manufacturing plant in California, and so Trudy arranged that they would be a part of the enterprise in exchange for providing work for the plant. Trudy gives Joy $50,000 to start up the operation. Now Joy has to find a place to sell the mops. She starts by going to the head of a local store and pitches the mop on him. He tells her he doesn't want to sell a $20 mop that you only have to buy once. Now, with an excess of products, Joy has to try to sell them one by one. With her daughter in tow, she sets up a display in the parking lot of Kmart and tries to convince women passing by to purchase one. Nobody stops or engages in conversation. So Jackie jumps in and Joy walks by with her daughter, pretending to be a customer who is talked into trying the mop. Right as people begin to take notice, the police come and confiscate the mops, telling her she can't solicit customers in their parking lot. When she gets home, there is a bill taped to the door. She hasn't paid the phone bill. Joy has now reached a new low. She has been given a huge loan from Trudy but cannot find any way to sell the product. Then Tony visits and tells her he might have a friend who can help her sell the mop. Tony drives Joy to Amish country for a meeting, but the large corporate building they're headed to isn't related to the Amish, it just happens to be nearby. They wait and wait all day but are ignored. Tony hadn't scheduled a meeting, he just happens to know someone who works there. That friend comes out and says they have to come back tomorrow for a possible chance to meet the guy in charge. Joy demands just 2 minutes and steps inside with her mop. There is a large meeting going on in a boardroom and Joy promises she just needs 2 minutes. She tells them about the mop, but the guys just make sexual references when she talks about wringing the head. The man in charge, Neil Walker, apologizes, saying they're tired after a long day. He asks her if she knows where she is. She says, no. He tells her the company is QVC and gives a history of his track record. He was a manager of several Kmarts and worked his way up and up until he became appointed to run QVC. He tells her it stands for quality, value, and convenience. They sell great products, not junk, which is what her mop is. She confidently tells him it's not junk. In the QVC bathroom, Joy mops up the entire place until it is clean. She points out that she didn't have to wring the mop once because it is 300 feet of continuous cotton. She then points to the adjacent kitchen, saying she has cleaned all over the toilet and would he use his family mop to then clean the kitchen, spreading those germs? With her mop, he can remove the mop head and wash it in the washing machine. Neil is convinced and he asks her if she can get 50,000 units by next week. Joy tells him, I think so. Trudy is reluctant to give Joy another $200,000 because she hasn't gotten her initial investment back. Trudy decides it is only fair if Joy takes on the risk herself, putting up half of the money. It is suggested that she takes out a second mortgage. Joy is nervous but confident enough in QVC that she agrees. An operation is set up in Rudy's auto shop, with the order supply kicked up to fill the 50,000 units. Joy is polite and speaks in Spanish to a group of women who she trains to assemble the mops. Joy and her family gather around the TV to watch her mop being sold on QVC. The spokesman tries to demonstrate how to use it, but he doesn't know how. Instead, he drips water all over his shoes and complains about getting wet. No calls come in. After dead air, they move on to another product. Joy's family is horrified. They have $250,000 tied up in this product selling. Joy receives a phone call from Neil. She tells him the salesperson didn't know how to use the product, but he said it just wasn't a good product. She explains she is going to lose her home. He tells her that her contract says QVC will cover 1/3 of the expenses lost, but even that isn't guaranteed. Trudy is distraught, saying she will have to declare bankruptcy, and suggests Joy does, too. Instead, Joy drives to the studio and demands a meeting with Neil. She tells him she has to be the one on camera. He tells her, we don't use regular people. We use spokesmodels and celebrities. He asks her if she's ever been on TV before, pointing out that most people freeze when the camera is on them. She tells him she uses the product so she will be the one to sell it. He is finally sold when she points out that her demonstration in the QVC bathroom is what convinced him to put it on the air. Now, Joy goes on the QVC stage. The camera rolls, countdowns, and then she freezes. She mumbles on air that she's Joy and doesn't know what else to say. The family is watching once again from home. At the station, there is dead air. Everyone is panicking. Then a stage manager says they have a call. Neil says to patch it through. Joy is confused. How can they have a call already? She hears Jackie's voice asking her about the mop. Joy perks up, knowing who's on the other end. She tells the caller that it's a mop with 300 feet of continuous cotton that you can clean an entire floor with, without having to wring it. Jackie replies, that's perfect for my family. I want 3. Now Joy gets more confident and begins pitching the mop. The phones light up. Orders pour through. After it sold tens of thousands, she tells the audience she hasn't told them the best part, you can remove the mop head and wash it in the washing machine. At the end of the broadcast, it had sold 50,000 units. Neil congratulates Joy backstage. She says she was afraid he was going to tell her the counter was broken. Joy goes on the QVC again, now selling 100,000 units. Neil tells her he is proud of her and says that if they ever become adversaries in commerce, he hopes they'll still respect each other. The love fest is broken up when Joy receives an urgent phone call. The next scene shows Joy at the funeral of Mimi. Peggy shows up to the funeral late. Back at the house, Joy learns that Peggy was attending to some business in California. The manufacturing plant halted production until it could get more money. Peggy claims she took care of it by paying the money owed, when they overcharged Joy, and offering an extra $2 a unit. Joy is shocked, pointing out that if they paid that price, they would lose money. She now has to go to California herself with the argument that Peggy doesn't represent her company. She tells Peggy, "Never speak on my behalf about my business again." Joy arrives in California in a dilapidated manufacturing factory. The waiting room has her mop on display, listed as their latest invention. When a man notices Joy waiting, she asks to speak to Marv Brickman but is told he's not there. But Marv shows up and begins to debate with Joy about the deal he's made with her half-sister. She says she didn't approve that deal and she would go broke if she agreed to it. Joy finds it funny that ever since they had a lot of sales on TV, the plant wants to demand more money. She accuses him of shaking them down. He tells her she should be paying more now because the increase in demand causes wear on their machines, that her molds break and have to be replaced every day. She is skeptical of her molds needing daily replacement and asks to see them. She is told no. She asks to use their bathroom. In the bathroom, Joy notices a side door that opens up into the factory. On a table is a blueprint of her mop design that they are claiming is their own. Marv finds Joy there and she screams at him, saying it's her design. She tries to take back the molds but the police come and arrest her. Marv says he called them as soon as she showed up in the building. Outside, Joy is arrested for trespassing and put into a cop car. Joy is bailed out of jail by Trudy, who is flown to California with Rudy and Joy's daughter. Trudy points out that not only is she at a loss of over $150,000 but they now have new expenses flying there, bailing Joy out of jail. Joy has been told by their lawyer that when Peggy paid off the overcharges, it validated Joy's work relationship with the factory. She can go to court and explain that Peggy had no jurisdiction to make business decisions on her behalf, but the court case will take years and they'll probably not even rule in her favor. She shares a patent with the guy in Texas, therefore it's his product as well as hers. Joy complains that they should have dealt with a patent lawyer as Tony had originally said. Trudy and Rudy tell Joy they need her to declare bankruptcy and a notary is outside the room, with the paperwork. Rudy tells Joy it's his fault for giving her the confidence to think she was more than just an unemployed housewife. Joy now begins crying and tells her young daughter never to believe that she's special or that the world owes her anything. Her daughter reminds Joy of Mimi's prophecy but Joy says Mimi was wrong, she won't achieve her dreams. Hesitantly, Joy signs the bankruptcy papers. She then tears her crayon designs for the mop off the wall. Joy goes to sleep. Then in the middle of the night, she cuts off her long hair in the bathroom. With a shorter hairdo, she seems more mature and now has a new confidence about her. Joy flies out to Texas. She walks into her hotel and goes into her room. A man enters shortly after. She asks if he's Gerhardt. He says he could be or he could have been sent as a representative. Joy tells him that last night, she was distraught and called Hong Kong at 1 a.m. which is 5 p.m. their time. When she mentioned to the Hong Kong inventor, who hired Gerhardt, about the patent, he said he was never told about the deal Gerhardt made with Joy. She points out this is fraud. She then looked into his design and realized it was nothing like her own mop, after all. She said her lawyers are very insistent that she file a lawsuit on these grounds. Immediately, Gerhardt backpedals and says he'll pay back the $50,000 initial investment. Joy isn't happy with this deal so he offers another $50,000. She now acknowledges him and suggests he adds interest, too. He does. She smiles and pulls out a contract that absolves their relationship. She writes that he will pay her $50,000 plus $50,000 in interest. He signs. We now see a giant estate and are told Joy moved into a nice home. Joy employed her family and remained close to them, even after they sued her. Neil stops by and visits Joy on her estate. He wants her to work on the Home Shopping Network as QVC's biggest success story, but she is hesitant. Their fondness for each other is adamant after all these years. Joy sets up an office in her house for inventors like herself. The movie ends with a woman entering the office with her husband and baby, and this woman is walking in similar steps to the one Joy took. To watch more explanations of these kinds of movies, click on the videos on your screen. And don't forget to let me know how you feel about today's video in the comments below. Kindly like the video and subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon so you don't miss any new videos. And at last, I will say, stay safe, stay well, thanks for watching.